camouflage trunks. He is fighting out of and representing his home of Baltimore, Maryland.
So guys, on cue, middle rounds.
Here's the corner. Frank should not be in there. We were talking about that. He's just setting himself up for...
The 2025 showdown between Jake Paul and Gervonta Tank Davis wasn't just a boxing match, it was an all-out clash of ego, power, and raw intensity. On the night of September 30th, fans around the world tuned in to witness the spectacle, the YouTube star turnfighter facing off against one of boxing's most feared punchers. Under the blinding arena lights, confidence met experience, and only one man walked out unshaken. Davis delivered a chilling reminder that in his ring, every mistake comes with consequences, and every nightmare begins with his left hand.
Nah, I'm not shocked. I mean, his last fight when he fought Lamont, Jake Paul was at the fight. He told y'all he was going to fight somebody like Jake Paul, so I'm not shocked.
September 30th, 2025, Atlanta, Georgia. The air inside the arena was electric long before the opening bell. This was the night boxing fans had circled on their calendars for months, a spectacle that promised fireworks before a single punch was thrown. On one side stood Gervonta Tank Davis, the undefeated knockout artist with dynamite in both fists. On the other, Jake Paul, the sport's most polarizing disruptor, a man who turned controversy into currency and hype into headlines. When these two finally stepped into the same ring, history wasn't just waiting to be made, it was demanding it.
Is this becoming a recipe for disaster for Tank Davis?
Inside Atlanta's State Farm Arena, the atmosphere wasn't just electric, it was volatile. Every cheer carried nerves, every camera flash felt like a spark before the storm. The crowd wasn't simply watching a fight, they were holding their breath, waiting for history to tilt one way or the other. The tension crackled in the air, thick and unrelenting, as fans sensed they were witnessing more than a headline bout, they were witnessing a defining moment. Across the world, millions watched live, wondering if this would be the night the knockout king cemented his legacy, or the night the problem child flipped boxing's entire narrative upside down.
As we all know, as a competitive sport boxing fan, this is nonsense. It doesn't make any sense for the sport, for Tank as a world champion fighting Jake Paul.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference.
In one corner stood Gervonta Tank Davis, 24 victories, 0 defeats, and 23 of those wins by knockout. His record spoke volumes, but his story spoke louder. Born and raised in Baltimore, Davis came from the kind of environment where few dreams survive and even fewer make it out. Violence, foster care, and a broken system shaped him, but they never stopped him. Instead, he turned every struggle into fuel, every setback into strength. By the time he stepped into that ring, he was already a two-division world champion, holding the WBA super featherweight and WBA lightweight titles simultaneously. To the roaring crowd in Atlanta, Davis wasn't just a fighter, he was living proof that grit, survival, and determination could be more powerful than destiny itself.
This fight is looking like through the eyes of at least one of the guys in it, because as of right now, Gervonta Tank Davis has said nothing. He has said not a lick about this fight. On the other hand, the master marketer that he is, has already dropped a video called "I'm Fighting Gervonta Davis."
And in the opposite corner stood the sport's most unlikely contender, Jake Paul. 10 wins, 1 loss, 7 of those by knockout. A man once dismissed as an internet prankster, now standing toe-to-toe with one of boxing's most feared champions. His rise through the ranks had been anything but conventional, loud, controversial, yet impossible to ignore. Earlier in 2025, he stunned the entire sporting world by defeating none other than Mike Tyson. That fight split fans right down the middle, some saw it as a passing of the torch moment, others as a circus act gone too far. But when the final bell rang, Jake Paul's hand was raised, and the debate didn't matter anymore. That victory didn't just shock the world, it forced boxing to take him seriously, placing his name in conversations no one ever expected to hear it.
Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still a 65-pound weight advantage, okay? They're smaller guys, but for 5'5", they'll pack a good punch. Typically, they're mixed martial artists or boxers, yeah. But when you're a boxer, that's 6'1", that's only had 1 loss on the record. Of course, Tommy Fury doesn't want to face him again.
Hailing from Cleveland, Ohio, Jake Paul had completely rewritten his own narrative. The former internet provocateur had evolved into a disciplined athlete, a fighter who no longer chased chaos but chased legacy. He trained with world-class coaches, built a team of professionals around him, and approached every bout with the precision of a businessman and the hunger of a competitor. To his supporters, he was the rebel the sport needed, someone bold enough to disrupt boxing's old guard and bring new life to it. To his critics, he remained a pretender with a powerful brand but questionable depth in the ring. Yet, whether admired or despised, Jake Paul demanded attention. And on September 30th, he stood face-to-face with the one man every fighter feared meeting across the canvas, Gervonta "Tank" Davis.
Think about it, and the more I think about the position of Jake Paul, of Tank Davis, and how each of them are coming into this fight, the more I start to also wonder, is Tank Davis taking Jake Paul seriously?
The energy inside State Farm Arena hit a fever pitch. Half the crowd roared, "Tank," with every breath, while the other half screamed, "Jake," as if their voices could tip the outcome. It wasn't just a boxing match anymore, it was a cultural collision. Tradition versus disruption. Legacy versus spectacle. Old school grit against modern audacity. The walkout set the mood before the first punch was thrown. Gervonta "Tank" Davis emerged first, wrapped in pristine white trunks trimmed with silver and gold, eyes fixed forward, emotionless. He didn't wave, didn't smile. His slow, deliberate steps carried the presence of a man walking toward another knockout, another name to add to his growing highlight reel. He had already done it 23 times before, and he made it clear Jake Paul was next. Then came Jake. Silver and chrome trunks glinting under the lights, surrounded by fireworks and deafening noise. Boos clashed with cheers in equal measure, but Jake didn't flinch. He fed off it, the love, the hate, all of it. Every jeer seemed to fuel him further. He carried himself like someone who believed he belonged there, even if half the world didn't. For Jake Paul, this night wasn't about money or fame, it was about proving he deserved a place in a sport that once laughed him out of the room. When both men stood across from each other, time seemed to stop. The arena that had been shaking moments before went deathly quiet. The referee called them to center ring. The stare-down was tense, Tank's gaze locked like a predator sizing up his next victim, while Jake, towering over him at 6 feet 1 inch to Davis's 5 feet 5 inches, refused to blink. Then the bell rang. Round 1. Tank exploded forward like a storm breaking loose. No feeling out period, no hesitation, just controlled aggression. His footwork was surgical, cutting off the ring and trapping Jake against the ropes. Davis hunted for an opening, ready to detonate that infamous left hand that had ended so many nights early. Jake stayed disciplined. He used his reach, snapping out his jab, stepping back, resetting. He was calm, strategic, fighting smart. Every jab was a reminder that size and range could neutralize danger, at least for a while. But 2 minutes in, danger found him anyway. Tank unleashed a lightning-fast left hook that cracked against Jake's jaw like a gunshot. The sound echoed through the arena. Jake's head snapped back violently, and for a heartbeat, everyone waited to see if he would crumble. But he didn't. He steadied himself, smirked, and motioned for Tank to come again. The crowd went wild, stunned by his audacity. Davis didn't hesitate. He pressed forward, ripping brutal shots to the body, hammering the ribs with the kind of force that could break resolve as easily as bone. But Jake Paul answered. Out of nowhere, he fired a straight right hand, sharp, clean, and perfectly timed, that smashed into Davis's chin. The crowd erupted. For a split second, Tank froze, absorbing the impact. The knockout artist had just been caught flush. Shockwaves rippled through the arena. Commentators shouted over each other, disbelief echoing across the broadcast. Jake Paul, the so-called outsider, had landed clean on one of boxing's most feared men. And instead of folding, he stood his ground. He didn't back away. He didn't run. He stayed in the pocket, trading fire with Tank Davis, proving in that moment that he wasn't there by accident.
Final 60 seconds as we are in the 6th round. Let's see what happens, because the words are being thrown at each other. Let's see if the punches start being thrown.
The final seconds of the opening round turned into a full-on firefight. Tank kept cutting off the ring, cornering Jake and forcing him to move with precision. Jake answered each attack with sharp counters, stiff jabs, clean right hands, and the composure of a man who refused to be intimidated. When the bell finally rang, both fighters stood tall. Davis returned to his corner with that same cold, unbothered stare, the look of a man who's been here 1,000 times before. Paul, on the other hand, walked back with a small nod, sweat glistening under the lights, silently declaring, "I belong here." For many watching, that opening round erased any doubts. This wasn't just hype or spectacle, this was a real fight. Davis had connected clean, and Jake hadn't fallen. Paul had landed in return, and Tank had felt it. Respect, even among skeptics, began to creep in. Then, in the second round, everything slowed down. Midway through, Jake Paul unleashed a shot that made the entire arena freeze. It wasn't a jab or a glancing blow, it was a fully loaded, perfectly timed right hand, thrown with every ounce of strength he had. The punch landed flush on Gervonta Davis's chin, echoing through the arena like a gunshot. For a split second, time stopped. The crowd gasped, commentators fell silent, and every eye locked on the ring to see if the unthinkable was about to happen.
Again, Chavez looked like he's struggling with his footwork.
Oh, big right from Paul. And you can see the red markings now on the face of Chavez Jr.
For an instant that felt like eternity, Tank Davis froze. His body stiffened, his eyes blinked hard, just once, as the shock registered. The undefeated knockout artist, the man known for ending fights with a single left hand, had been rocked. The arena erupted in chaos. Fans screamed in disbelief, some spilling drinks, others leaping onto chairs just to catch a glimpse of what they couldn't believe they were seeing. Commentators shouted over each other, voices cracking with astonishment. Jake Paul, the outsider, the underdog, the disruptor, had just rocked Gervonta, Tank Davis. The line spread like wildfire through the crowd and across social media in real time. Jake Paul just shook the knockout king. In that moment, the impossible felt within reach, and for the first time all night, the world wondered, could this actually happen?
Again, Chavez looked like he's struggling with his footwork.
Oh, big right from Paul. And you can see the red markings now on the face of Chavez Jr.
But here's the thing about Gervonta, Tank Davis, he's not built to break, he's built for war. You can land a clean shot, you can even shake him for a second, but you better be ready for what comes next. Because Tank doesn't retreat. He responds, violently. And respond he did. Davis charged forward, digging into Jake Paul's midsection with body shots that sounded like thunderclaps inside the arena. A crushing left hook to the liver. A punishing right hand to the solar plexus. Then another hook buried deep beneath the ribs. Each shot echoed through the crowd, a brutal reminder that Tank's power wasn't just in his hands, it was in his relentlessness. Suddenly, Jake wasn't advancing anymore. He was backing up, arms tucked in tight, gasping for air as the pain set in. The look on his face said everything. Those body shots didn't just hurt, they emptied the tank, drained the will. Within seconds, the momentum that had electrified the crowd flipped completely. Moments earlier, Jake had the arena roaring his name. Now, the cheers were mixed with disbelief as Tank Davis reasserted control with surgical precision. That's what championship experience looks like, not perfection, but composure under chaos. Tank didn't panic, he adapted. He took one bad moment and flipped it in the blink of an eye, turning survival into domination the way only a true champion can.
Heartbeat, there's a right
Good
hand.
right hand. They're just far in between.
But somehow, Jake Paul didn't fall. He absorbed the punishment, bit down on his mouthpiece, and made it to the bell. When the round ended, he raised his gloves defiantly, proving he was still in it. That alone kept millions watching, breathless, wondering if they were witnessing the impossible, the making of one of the greatest upsets in modern boxing history. The tension inside the State Farm Arena was unbearable. Every fan felt the weight of what might happen next. Was this all hype finally catching up to reality? Or was Jake Paul truly about to rewrite the story of boxing itself? Then came round 3, the round that would etch itself into history. Tank Davis emerged from his corner with a different look, no smirk, no patience, no playing around. The testing phase was over. He had felt Jake's power, measured his timing, and now he was ready to end the experiment. Paul circled cautiously, pumping his jab, trying to keep distance. But against a predator like Tank, hesitation is fatal. His footwork was just a half step slow, and that was all Davis needed. 2 minutes into the round, Tank set the trap. He dipped hard to the right, feinting the same vicious body shot that had crippled Jake earlier. Paul instinctively lowered his guard, ready to block low, and that single mistake sealed his fate. In a flash, Davis fired his signature weapon, the left uppercut. It shot upward with blinding speed, ripping through Jake's defense and detonating square on his chin. The sound of the impact cut through the noise of the arena, a sharp, haunting crack that overpowered the crowd, the commentary, everything. Jake's body went limp instantly. His legs buckled before gravity even caught him. His silver trunks crumpled under the lights as he hit the canvas, arms outstretched, head bouncing once against the mat. The arena erupted, chaos and disbelief colliding in one deafening roar. Half the audience screamed in horror, the other half celebrated the inevitable. It was a knockout for the ages, the kind that burns into boxing history and replays in slow motion across every screen on earth. The referee didn't bother with a full count. One look was enough. He waved it off. It was over, officially, brutally, completely over.
Like, yeah, I'll do it, but also I'm gonna, and again, Jake's only been boxing for 5, 6, 7 years now. It isn't necessarily far-fetched to try to have his own advantages when trying to fight other boxers.